What's going on, guys? For those of you who don't know me, my name is 𝗵𝗿𝗏 and I'm the CEO and founder of Advancement Hockey Advising. And today I'm interviewing my good friend Brandon Krumpschmid, who's the assistant coach at the University of New England right now. Really good NCAA D3 program for those of you who don't know it. And today we'll be talking about the massive NCAA CHL rule change that occurred this past week or so. And we're going to be going in depth with Brandon here, getting a D3 coach's take. He also coached at the D1 level previously at Colgate. So it's going to be cool to see, an NCAA coach's take both at the D3 and D1 level, how he thinks is going to impact the game, how it's going to impact his recruiting, and how it's going to impact players overall. So definitely stick around for that. If you haven't already, absolutely destroy that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you never miss another video moving forward. So without further ado, let's dive right into the interview here with Brandon.
All right, we have Brandon Krumpschmid in the house here. I think Krum, this is like our third interview together or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think 3.
Yeah, for sure. So today, like I said in the intro here, we'll be talking about the CHL NCAA rule that just passed last week. And overall, the whole point of this talk is kind of to discuss it, go back and forth on it, see what this means for players and what this means for coaches too. So maybe, Krum, we could get your initial thoughts on this rule passing here last week.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think a lot of people who have been around and kept their ear to the ground, they kind of expected this was going to happen, and it was going to happen sooner rather than later. It seemed like ever since that NIL and the transfer portal and NCAA started to get a little bit looser with their definition of what amateurism is, all signs were kind of pointing to someday the major junior kids were going to have a leg to stand on, and if they really wanted to force the hands of the NCAA, they'll get their eligibility. And now we're sitting here today as of it was Thursday, November 7th was the day that the D1 Council met, and now CHL players are eligible to play Division I hockey. Yeah, so that's where we're at today.
Which is kind of crazy, honestly, because for the longest time, like we've been telling players, at 15 years old, you have this big decision to make, whether it's to go major junior or like stay back and go play NCAA or junior A then NCAA. Now that doesn't really exist anymore. It's a whole different set of implications now that we're gonna have to tell players. So kind of crazy to think about that this actually went through, because it really is a huge change in the hockey landscape.
Yeah, like I've been telling people, you just kind of have to rewire your brain, because you've always been kind of given 2 routes that you can take. It was the major junior route or it was the college route. You kind of had to decide, if you're a good enough player around 15, 16 years old, what route was going to make the best sense for your development. Now it's kind of it's gray. It used to be black and white. Now it's a little bit grayer. So I think overall, I know we'll get into it, but I think overall for the sport and for college hockey, it will be a good thing.
I think so too. Long term, I think it's going to be good. There's going to be a lot of things that kind of happen short term that's going to be a little bit tougher, especially because I feel like the NCAA just had a bunch of pressure. They came out with this rule, but there's not that many clarifications on it. Like, for example, reasonable expenses. What does that mean? Right? Yeah. It could be so many.
It all depends on how you perceive it.
Exactly. So I think they could have done a better job there, but I get that they were rushed and they just wanted to get this thing out. So I think in the next couple of months, I think they're going to come out with more precise rules and all that stuff for players to follow. But right now, like, if you're a coach, if you're a player, what are you kind of thinking? What do you like as a coach? How does this change your recruiting strategy? How do you think this is going to change things for players? I kind of want to hear your thoughts on it.
So it all depends on your perspective and what your situation is right now. So I'll use me, for example, Division III assistant coach who is involved a lot with the recruiting side of things and bringing players into the University of New England. It just expands our pool of players. I'd say black and white, the biggest thing is now with more players eligible to play Division I, there's more of a chance that the player that a Division I team gets last minute, which would be one of our top guys on our list, he doesn't get scooped up late in before the season in his 20-year-old year anymore. I think that's going to stop happening. That'll be like the immediate effect. So it just gives us more, we just have to expand our idea of kind of the quality of player that we could potentially get. The best programs are probably going to try and get and push to see how high of a caliber player they can get. That's going to be just the competitive nature, I guess, of the top D3 programs. And then I think for D1, it's going to depend on team to team. Like we talked about earlier, I think some teams have a network. They have a coach who has a network in the WHL. Bowling Green, perfect example. Dennis Williams, he was the Everett Silvertips head coach up until a couple years ago, took the Bowling Green job. I'm assuming his network is still pretty strong there in the WHL. I imagine they're going to tap into it. Clarkson and St. Lawrence are right on the border up there in New York. University of Maine over here, they're by Quebec. Like, I'm sure if these kids want to stay closer and something more familiar to them, these are the type of schools that are going to be at every game coming up here, especially for the age out kids in these schools. So yeah, from a logistical standpoint, I think you're going to see the teams right away who have networks already built just from past jobs, past relationships. They'll probably dip into certain pools of players immediately. I think over the next 5-6 months now, every team is at least going to talk about it. There are some teams that probably were projecting it was going to happen. There's probably some teams that were going to say, we're not going to step foot in there until we know it's certain. But now everybody's on the same playing field. Everybody has the opportunity at the Division I level to go get these players. It's just going to be on recruiting philosophy at this point. So I think maybe at the start, you'll see a group of guys who have kind of had a handshake agreement there that once this passes, will commit. And then now you're going to see maybe over time players trickling as these players get introduced to what Division I hockey is about, because for years they've been told they can't. Now they can, so they got to get educated in it too.
Yeah, especially in the queue, because a lot of these Quebec players, they don't even talk about NCAA, especially if you go up north of Montreal.
Yeah.
If you ever mention NCAA now, like by the time they're 17 or 18, they might have heard of it, whatever. But now, like, it's not too late. They can actually go and play. So you might see some of these Quebec guys actually go to NCAA D1 hockey now, which is kind of wild to think about because that never happened in the past. So, and just to clarify things too, for the D3 level, right now officially, you can't recruit guys who play Major Junior. I feel like that's going to probably change over the next couple months. They might adjust that rule, but for now, you guys can't recruit, right?
Correct. So, yep, just spoke with our compliance to confirm, yes, we can't commit, or it's not official yet. Just like probably what these D1 guys thought a few months ago, probably what I think now is that once one goes, they all go. D3 will probably follow suit. I wouldn't understand a real reason why they wouldn't.
Right.
But as of today, we can't. So I think naturally the pool of players will still increase just because of the D1 being able to do it. But it's definitely going to be really uncharted territories for Division III recruiting straight from Major Junior. I think just my personal take of it would be that the more group of players that you'll see that will be new would be the players who have played Major Junior games, did not make it for their team, went and played in the Ontario Junior League, went and played in a CCHL, went and played in a Maritime, like any other of those leagues, but have already burnt their eligibility before. Those kids would probably be more set to go to a Division III school more so than a Division I school.
I agree with you, and it'd be a shame for those kids not to go play good NCAA D3 hockey because they play games in Major Junior. So
it seems like a pretty random group of kids to
just exclude,
exile, to not allow. Like, I feel like that's pretty random, but like what you said.
Yeah, if you're a player right now, what would you be doing? Let's say you're a guy who's playing Tier 2 hockey, in the NA, or let's say in the CCHL. You're a good player, doing well, but you're not like exceptional by any means. You're not a guy that's going to probably go Major Junior. What would you do in that case? How do you think it's going to impact them?
I really compare it's the 2004 age group now that is aging out of junior hockey. I compare them to the 1999 group that inherited the COVID situation, where their last year junior was ended abruptly, and then all of a sudden all of the NCAA athletes were given an extra year of eligibility, so none of those those spots opened up. So all of those kids who were banking on a late commit, who historically would have been a late Division I commit, a lot of those kids got pushed down, and it was completely out of their control. So all you can do is control what you can control. You just, like, those kids that I thought it made Division III a lot better. You see a lot of those kids dominating at the Division III level and go on. There's still kids who go on to play professional hockey from there. So I don't think it's like end all be all, but one thing I say is I'm biased because I'm a Division III guy who played D3 and coaches at the Division III level. I think there should be I think it's going away a bit much of the stigma around the level of Division III. I think it's becoming more respected, but I think a lot of these tier 2 junior leagues just need to embrace the Division III level and embrace the top teams at the Division III level as quality hockey programs who can develop good players and move them on. And you know, it's a great place to come play. And yes, we can't give athletic scholarships, but I think it's still a great place to go play hockey and develop as a hockey player and a person. So I think part of it is embracing the Division III hockey, because it's just going to make it's going to be really good hockey.
Yeah, it already is very good hockey, especially the top programs like UNE and, you know, a bunch of other programs. But I think now, like, yeah, the guys will have to embrace it. It's already really good hockey, and I think with time it's only going to get better as well with this new rule in place. There's going to be a trickle-down effect. A lot of major junior guys are going to go NCAA D1. Those guys that you said were like kind of on the cusp of getting that late D1 commit probably won't get it anymore. Those guys will probably end up going D3, which will make your programs that much stronger. You know,
yeah.
Over time, I think it's only going to continue to get better.
Yeah, and it's unfair to the 19, 20-year-old kids right now. It's out of their control. That's just kind of the reality of it. Like, that's the harsh thing to say, but I think at the end of the day, like I said, Division III is a good hockey level. There's going to be always places to play. There's going to be there's going to be coaches that want you, and you're going to be a part of something. And it's just continuing to grow. Hockey's going to grow. I think long term, what it will do is Division I hopefully should expand with the quality of players now being available for these teams. I think some programs will be able to jump. You look at how good UConn got really fast and how good Arizona State got really fast. If you can get these teams, especially if you're doing a group of teams into a conference, like teams that are all from the same conference can start a conference pretty early. Like now you can win recruiting battles with the best of them.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be the talent of kids to pick from.
I'm really interested to see D1 hockey in the next like 2 or 3 years. You know, I think it's gonna be crazy the amount of like acceleration that's gonna come from this rule change, to be honest, because they can probably get the best of the best now. So,
and it should bring parity. Like whenever you expand, whenever you can pick from a bigger pool of players, it should come with parity, because there's just more ways to acquire talent now than there ever has been before. So there's less barriers of entries for these smaller schools to have to battle with all these different teams for the smaller group of players. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how good college hockey gets. And I think from the very top two, I think one interesting things you'll see is how NHL teams want to develop their players. Do they want guys to go do a year? Do they draft a guy out of major junior and then send him to college because that organization prefers that way? And that's
interesting.
Now it's a possibility. Never was before. So I think that's interesting. I think that you see some teams strictly draft from college hockey, or I shouldn't say strictly draft college hockey. They just prefer the college hockey development model. But now I think teams will look at getting the best of both worlds, of finding a kid who has had the experience of playing a kind of a rigorous schedule that's more like 60, 70 games. But then when they turn 18 years old, let's make them go play with older guys, get in the gym more. This is prime years for their body development. They've already kind of had the mental development of a pro schedule. Now they go the physical development of a college schedule. And now you're trying to get the best of both worlds. I could see that definitely being a possibility with what NHL teams, that's their development philosophy.
I think that's going to happen 100%. Not for all kids, like the cream of the crop, elite players,
yes,
like Connor Bedard's, all that, they're just going to go to the NHL right away. That's always going to be a given. But like for the other guys that are really good, or the good players, you know, I think those guys, it makes more sense than to go sign in the coast or to go sign in the A where they're not quite ready, you know, or to keep playing major junior. They might just say, hey, if you like education, go to NCAA, go develop there for a few years, play against older guys. And once you're ready, then you go to the pro level. I think that developmental model makes a lot more sense at this point. You know?
Yeah, I think it's the best way to get the best out of probably like your 3rd to 7th round draft picks.
Yeah.
Is to do it that way, because those are the kids who probably are less physically developed anyway, but with more raw talent. So I think trying to do a hybrid model of getting the best of juniors, major juniors, and then getting the best out of the college model, it almost seems inevitable, right? That someone's going to try it right away, right? Like,
For sure.
I definitely see that happening.
What do you think is going to happen to USports? I know it's out of your wheelhouse, but do you think it's
Yeah, I definitely think USports is now, they gotta change their clientele probably, like whether their recruiting style of not just banking on getting all those kids from major junior. Now they have to probably scout a little bit more junior leagues. They probably have to now go to the OJs and the CCs and those kind of leagues and try to get those players. But I mean, you gotta think that with, like we talked about, the number one, the biggest group that's gonna get affected immediately is tier 2 juniors.
Yeah.
And you got to look at probably like the BCHL and the AJHL. I imagine those kids would probably be their top client, like their top recruiting guy.
Yeah,
right?
I would say so. Honestly, I think they're going to go more for the tier 2 guys now. I think they'll probably still get some guys major junior, like not like the gross players. They're probably going to get the guys that in and out of the lineup, those kind of players at that point, and then mainly tier 2 guys. But I know a couple USports coaches that I talked to, and they're freaking out when this rule came out, because it changes. I think they're going to be the ones that get hit. Some of the ones that get hit the hardest with this, where they have to change a whole bunch of things. So
I think that's a really good point. I think that it all depends on like perspective, right? And like how does it affect you? I think USport, like, I still think it goes by staff to staff on who their philosophy, right? Like there's some guys who are like, we're not changing. This is what we do. We're going to do it until it doesn't work anymore. And then there's guys that's like, we got to adapt and change right now. Yeah. So it just depends on your thinking and your philosophy.
For sure. On your end, what are you guys going to kind of do as an approach? Do you think you're going to go more the adapt and change route, or do you think you're going to stick more to, status quo for now?
I think it allows us to be more patient. We've always had the philosophy of being able to wait on guys because we are in that group of schools that get those guys who are either they're B-list guys for the Division I schools, but they're A-list guys for us. So, and they know that they can wait us out because we'll always be there for them.
Yeah.
So I think that list has probably gotten bigger of the amount of kids that we'll probably get, or that will probably be around there when we're waiting on kids. So at the end of the day, I still stick to, I like my kids who have head, have heart, can, they're nor'easters, they can think it, they love the game, they're hockey players, they're not guys who play hockey. Like, I still have the intuition for guys that I like when I go and watch the junior leagues that I do.
Yeah.
But it just makes our list bigger. So at the end of the day, it'll narrow it down naturally, but I think we'll just be able to wait on guys a little bit longer.
Okay, good to know. If you're a player going through this journey today, let's say you're 14, 15 years old, usually it'd be the splitting point as to where you can kind of go. What would your approach be at that point?
It always comes back to, you got to evaluate yourself and what you believe the best development is for you. Are you a physically developed kid who needs to be challenged mentally? Or do you have the mentals down, but you're not ready physically enough yet? So I always say, find places that want you, give yourself an opportunity to succeed. You want to be pushed for sure. You want to play at one of the higher levels that you can, but it's not end all be all. Your reps and your touches are what matter the most. So if you believe you can play Division I and you're on the track, you're already young, you're talking to schools, or you're talking to high-end junior programs, or you're one of the best players on a top program, like, do your research, explore your options. Like, the CHL is a very, very good league. Like, Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, they all played. Like, there's a reason why these guys come from there and do well. Like, it's very professionally ran programs that really that they're NHL. A lot of these guys are NHL guys. They have their network in the NHL and they want to try to do what they believe is best to develop tomorrow's NHLer. So it's legit, but it's gonna be pretty cutthroat up there too. So it's a business. They're trying to win, and those guys get hired, they get fired. Like they're gonna, as much as they want to develop you, like you're in the big leagues now when you're going to those things. Yeah. So that's when it goes back to, can you mentally handle it? Like, are you mentally able to go there, and you're mature enough and you can do that? If you believe so, if you understand what you're getting yourself into, it's a great route. And I think a lot of guys are going to do it, and a lot of guys are going to have success, but a lot of other guys are going to think that they're ready for it and they're not, and they're going to get thrust into the world of junior politics very fast at a very young age, and that's what sours the game of hockey for a lot of guys.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
So you just have to be careful, and you have to be pretty self-aware. It's good to surround yourself with people who can tell you exactly what they think and can shoot you straight. Trust your coaches, previous coaches, trust your advisors, trust your parents. Like, as long as they know if they're looking out for what's best for you. Like I would just say it's a very good avenue to try for sure. But at the end of the day, you just have to do what's best for your development.
Agreed. I think like now there's no risk in trying and going to the camps and trying to make the team and stuff.
Yes.
But I would say the same principle applies. Like before we used to think like, oh, do I go to the BCHL versus staying back in the CCHL? You know, it's a similar comparable. Same thing now. Let's say you're a guy that tries major junior. You're going to be like, let's say a fourth line healthy scratch, but you have a BCHL or USHL team that's looking to put you in the top 6. At that point, you're better to go where you're probably going to get more development, at least for that year. You know, not always. Sometimes it's best to play at the highest level, but for most guys, going where you're going to get that development when you're young probably makes the most sense long term. That's always been my take, and I think it's going to apply with this rule change as well.
And you always want to go, you always want positive progression. You never want to take steps back. People who rush into, it's like, oh, my kid's got to go play in the BCHL. Yeah. It's like, well, if your kid goes to the BCHL and he doesn't do well and doesn't make it there and has to go back to a different junior league, like people notice that. And they're like, oh, he couldn't make it in that league. Or there's going to be coaches who's like, someone's already tried this, it hasn't worked, I'm going to try a different guy who's never done it before. Yeah. So there are consequences to rushing into stuff like that. Some coaches will look at it like, yeah, you might have had this many points in this league, but you tried to go to that league and it didn't work. So if you can't play in that league, what makes you think you can play in the CCHA? Like, yeah. So those coaches are just, there's some coaches that will write you off. There's some coaches that won't, but it's just putting I always try to, everybody wants positive progression. Always try to look like you're getting better every single year.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. I'll save the technical questions for the other video that I filmed. We kind of cover all of that. I want to get more your take and the impact and all that stuff. Technical questions are kind of boring too, and we'll answer that in other videos. But one last question I have for you is maybe something we haven't touched on today. It's a vague question, but what's your last piece of advice for players, parents out there? I always like to ask that one, but something related to this that we haven't touched on.
There's so many things that are going to be out of your control. Just like everybody who's gone through sports has dealt with it, where you're dealt a bad hand. Like these kids who, it's bad timing, it's unfortunate. Just focus on what you can control. It's going to weed out the kids who are too focused about the exterior things of, oh, now I'm never going to be able to play Division I. I'm not going to be able to ever play Division I, or where am I going to go from here? It's like the kids who are just focused and hockey centric, like it takes care of itself. We tell our players, it always plays itself out. Like whoever does the right things, it usually gets rewarded. Whoever, it's all cliche, but at the end of the day, when all this stuff happens that's out of your control, just focus on yourself. Like focus on what you believe is best for yourself, and it's a game. Like just have fun.
Honestly, like it's some of the best piece of advice. It's so hard to do when things are changing around you and stuff, but like if you can actually legitimately do that, it's like the best piece of advice, because the rest does fall into place if you do.
Go to the rink and smile and skate around with your buddies. It's fun.
Sounds like a great time.
Right? Like you're playing hockey, it's a good day. go have fun. Don't worry about it. Let all the coaches and all the advisors whose job depends on getting kids, signing kids, trading kids, let them worry about it. You guys just go play hockey.
Yeah,
that's my advice.
I think it's a good way to end it off. So great advice. Krum, thanks for coming on today, and maybe we'll do round 4 soon in the future.
Of course, I'm a reoccurring guest now. It's my obligations.
And that's a wrap, my friends. Hopefully you guys got some value out of this interview here and that you enjoyed Brandon's take just like I did. Now, if you want to keep watching, definitely click up here or up here. If you haven't hit that like button already, absolutely destroy that like button. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell as well so you never miss any videos moving forward. If you have any questions for me, Brandon, any of us all together, drop a comment down below or send us an email. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We will catch you on that next one.